When Mary Brooks' father goes missing in the jungle, it's up to Tarzan to help reunite them. In the 1933 serial-turned-feature film, Tarzan the Fearless. And that's the movie we're dusting off this week on Movie Bones.
Hey, Jeff, when do we ditch this bunch and start looking for that lost emerald mine?
We don't need their company and supplies anymore. Careful. We're in the Uganda country, Miss Brooks, where your father disappeared.
But these delays, Jeff.
Oh, there are always delays in the jungle, as Nick and I know only too well.
Why, sure. He's telling you the truth, lady.
I wonder.
Stand up. Rachel! All right, what's wrong?
They say this Tarzan country. Wild white men live around here.
Well, what do they mean, Bob?
Just one of 1,000 jungle legends. Something about a wild white man raised by apes.
A wild white man raised by apes.
Hooey.
You don't believe the story, do you, Jeff?
I heard the story. I heard it once in London. Anyway, we better camp here for tonight. Hunger, up with the tent.
Okay, so this week's film was suggested to us by Aaron Aram, number 5569. So thank you, Aaron. Hope you appreciate the review, but I do wonder if you're going to like our comments on it, because have you ever seen someone grin in just such a way as to communicate, pepper spray me? Because if you had asked me last week, I'd have to think about it for a while, but at least after this viewing, now I have a ready answer for it. It's like, yes, I have seen such a grin. There is a hero that is not heroic in any single way possible. Yeah, I was squinting real hard to try and find it, too. Thoughts on that?
We all know Tarzan in one way or another. Whether you grew up with the more theatrical older films, there's a reason why I specifically say the more theatrical older films, or you remember the animated movie, the Disney movie with the fantastic Phil Collins soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Tarzan is a character that stays in the media, maybe not the spotlight of the media, but does stay in everything. And most of the time, he comes across as noble, innocent of sorts, because he's got that animal-like quality to him, because he's raised by apes. He does things that we deem, when he does things that we deem to be, most of the time when we look at that, that's morally reprehensible. He does so with a innocence to it. So it's like, oh, you don't know any better. Like, I'm thinking about the cartoon movie. I think, like, there was times in the cartoon movie, he puts his hands on things he shouldn't put his hands on. He breaks things he shouldn't break when he's with Jane and her father. And again, it's just like, oh, he doesn't know any better because he's never been around people before. He's only ever been around animals. And the animals that he's around, they do this kind of stuff. And also, they're not around this type of stuff.
Yeah.
This does not happen. Here is our offshoot, where it's like, bro, you need to catch a charge.
I no, totally, because it's like there's a certain kind of, it's hard to, like, the presumption of innocence because of all that only goes so far. He looks at Mary, who is totally, quote unquote, not Jane, but totally Jane in this, is that he looks at Mary like a Catholic at the end of Lent looks at a steak after a Lenten fast. Okay. He's drooling over this woman, and it's like, and he completely talks to her like as a thing. He refers to her as a thing. Now, he has limited vocabulary. I get it. You have to presume that he would understand person as different from object. You do not get that impression from this guy at all. That is not the case here. Totally.
Well, see, that's a problem. If we want to take this into the practical realm, like with other animals, one or two things going to happen when an animal comes across an animal that it's the same kind of animal, but also has never seen before or very rarely sees. They're either going to group up with one another in some capacity, like a positive capacity, or they're going to be enemies. It's not going to be treating the other one poorly like that. And I don't know, maybe you can make an argument like, well, that's what some animals do, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's a fantastical story. I understand that it's a fiction story, but at the same time, it's like we have better examples of Tarzan.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I don't want to sit up here and say, like, oh, I'm the biggest Tarzan fan in the world. I'm really not. Like, I think it's a cool story, but it's just not like, I'm not, it's not something I'm like, oh, you got to get Tarzan like this, and this.
You can't have him, like, saying, oh, there's a thing. What does he do? Hold on a second. I go down to my note here. It's like it's coming tonight soon, and basically shoves Jane, I almost said it again, Mary onto his what is got to be like his bed, and says, "You stay. You're here. You're in my. You go to my bed now." And I'm like, how is this even in the 1930s? And there is some risque stuff in this. Actually, I have to say. This is the scene where he puts Jane on his bed, or he said it again, Mary on his bed.
Mary. Yeah.
Mary on his bed, and tells her basically, this is your place. You stay, this is where you belong. And I'm like, how did this, even in the days of the early codes, like, how did this pass muster? I mean, you'd think that a society that was at least a little uptight about these kind of things be like, hey, that's just really awful. What are you implying here? Because I was like, oh no, please no, don't go there. And I know they wouldn't go like show anything, but it's like the implication here. I mean, did you read it differently than I did?
No, not at all.
Okay,
again,
good. I'm not the only one.
I'm looking at like the original, the book, like the original, the first part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not finding anything in here where he does anything like that. Nothing really about anything like that I see so far.
I mean, yeah.
And also, too, this is another thing. This is a pet peeve of mine. I don't know why. This is not just a Tarzan thing. This is beyond other things. Why do we have to change name of characters? Like, why do we do that?
Yeah.
This is, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think copyright was like, I mean, it was a thing, but, I don't think there's like a copyright on like Jane.
No.
Why is there Tarzan? And like, why is she Mary? She's clearly Jane.
She
like,
is.
Watching the movie, before they even said her name, I was like, that's clearly Jane. Jane's father is always a professor. Like, Mary's father is a professor. Like, what is it? What is, like, they're both very simple names. They're both very, quote-unquote, generic names, meaning that, like, you can find a lot of Marys and Janes out there. What was it? Why did he was like, you know what? She needs to be Jane. She needs to be Mary. Like, why? Just keep her as Jane.
I mean, you've already gone to the step of taking the name of your main character from the series. Tarzan is Tarzan. I mean, it's like by that point, what's Jane to Tarzan? And yes, she's always associated with Tarzan because Tarzan. It's like, so you've already done that. So, but suddenly you get like, I don't know. I want to crawl in the head of the executive that said, no, we can't have Jane. We have to make her Mary instead because that's different. And her father's the same basically character. And like, oh, come on, people. I mean, but if they're all there anyway, why bother with the name? So why bother with this one character's name change? And the other characters too. Okay, I'm going to segue that into something else because about Mary. Is that she has every man who isn't her father, who apparently at some point wants Mary. In the beginning, you've got you've got the pith helmet wearing, wide cheekboned guy. I can't think of his name, but it's like he's the fiance / love interest that she's with at the moment, and it's like so she's clearly had some kind of relationship with him. We never know what that's about. And then later on, of course, Tarzan sweeps her off her feet, and suddenly now she's lured into by this sexual predator. Basically, it's like, and she falls for it because she's into that kind of thing, apparently. And then later on, you have the overweight guy, the heavyset guy, I should say, the heavyset guy. He's like dying because he's had his own greed come back and bite him in the tail, basically, and he's shot. And he's dying, and he's confessing to Mary that he did it all because he wanted to, I guess, impress her, I guess. It's kind of unclear, but he's clearly centered around Mary, too. But previously, that's the end of the film, previously, never a word about it, folks. Not one word about it. But everyone loves Mary, apparently. There's all kinds of plot machinations in this. But I did notice one recurring theme is that every guy who isn't her father loves Mary or desires Mary.
Yes, yes, and again, it was weird because it was all over the place for me. It's like, of course, but it also weirdly makes sense, and I'm not saying in a good way. It just makes sense of like that's what honestly, that's what happens to a lot of female characters like that throughout a lot of these movies. It's like you just have a bunch of dudes that are like vying for their heart.
It is kind of a testament to the film that all the issues we're talking about kind of obscure the kind of blatant racism we see in the film too. I mean, it's peppered throughout, I have to say. But getting to that point, because it's not an insubstantial point, I have to say. We have, I know Western audiences probably don't care, and that's probably why they thought, hey, sure, why not? But it's like, you've got Arabs in sub-Saharan Africa as slave drivers, whipping the native black population. Arabs are not portrayed at all good at all. They're duplicitous. They're completely backstabbing. And it's like, so, but they're still above the black people. And you have natives, sub-Saharan African whites, which is a trope I'm starting to pick up on. Because, like, there's another film. Have you ever seen Alan Quartermain in The Lost City of Gold by any chance? I doubt it.
I know what that is, but you're right. I've not actually sat down and watched that movie.
Alan Quartermain in The Lost City of Gold is about, it's Alan Quartermain film from the 80s, and he's on an adventure to find his lost brother who years earlier had found a lost white civilization tribe in Africa. And it's like, but they're still above the black people because they're portrayed as having this advanced civilization. Yeah, it's multicultural to an extent, but at the same time, it's the whites who brought the civilization to the Africans, because you never see like an African tribe led by like blacks in Africa who are civilized as that. So it's clearly a preference there. But I'm wondering if that's like an extension of this now, because it's like here in this movie you've got a tribe who worships an Egyptian god, apparently, if you were any kind of judge of statuary. It's like, here's this Egyptian statuary that they're worshiping in sub-Saharan Africa. And I could just see it, some like executive looking at that and saying, yeah, it's in Africa. Sure. Bring it in. It's no difference to our audience. But it's like all of these things, and it's like you're just kind of melanging a whole bunch of tropes together and shoving them together.
For those of you that don't know, this particular Tarzan story was meant as a serial, and serial really is the word series, but it wasn't supposed to be very long, as in back in the day.
Yeah,
you could watch serials. Like, in fact, actually, I encourage you to go do so. All of you out there, I won't lie, I've not particularly sat down and watched these myself because I know some of them are good and some of them are kind of eh.
Commando Cody's a good one if you're going to sit down for one of those. It's not good. It's just goofy B movie fun is what they all are.
The creation of this particular Tarzan story was a serial, and it was a serial that was shot for 12 chapters. Now, I don't particularly know how long most serials go, or like what the runtime of each individual serial is supposed to be. But you have to think about this, folks. 12 chapters. Let's say they are, I know the serial on the Batman serials that you can find, again, on Tubi, they run for about 3 hours themselves. Let's say each one is like an hour and 15 minutes, or maybe even 45 minutes. Let's be generous and say it's only 30 minutes. That is 12 30-minute slots condensed down into 1 hour and 9 minutes. Or if you look around, because you can look around and you can find this on YouTube, you can look around and find people that have or edited other versions of it that are like an hour and 20 minutes or an hour. Mostly it's like an hour and 20 minutes. But like, regardless of which one you watch, that is 12 chapters, 30 minutes, I'm guessing at most, or at least, that is, condensed down into an hour-long movie. Like, we know that people can edit things to redo a story and whatnot, but that's the problem here. That is the problem here, is that we have a big old story that doesn't make much sense, in my opinion. I mean, we know what the story is, obviously, but it doesn't make much sense. The themes are all over the place.
I looked in the credits, and I understand what you're saying. There's certain kind of limitations you have based on the serial nature of the product, and it is a product. We have to be clear about that. It's like when you're doing a serial, the whole point of serials in the first place is they show a part of the serial in front of the main film, so that the audience, and they always end with a cliffhanger. That the audience will come back in the next week. My grandfather talked about this. That you'd come back the next week and be enticed into watching another movie based on the serial, if you're invested enough in that kind of thing. If your task is to try and take these piecemeal adventures and string them into a movie, it's a pretty thankless job. But then I wouldn't want my name attached to the film. And they do credit a continuity person on this. I looked in the beginning when I was making the episode up for today. I saw that there's actually a person credited for continuity. It's like, man, I don't want your job. It's like, I don't know why you bother. Why didn't you have them take your name off the film? It's like, that's what I would have done, because it's like, this is a thankless job. It's not the right format for this kind of thing. It just isn't going to work.
We were, to be generous to the fact that this is something that was shot in a different capacity and then re-edited. But if you go look, other reviews of this are not kind because of that, because it lacks cohesion.
Yeah. We're not making this up. We're not pulling it out.
But
and this is, by the way, the only version of Tarzan. And this goes back to a copyright. I don't know if it's a copyright thing. There was some rights issues of who held the rights. But there's a reason why. For some reason, there was a dispute over who had the rights to Edgar Rice Burroughs, who was apparently still alive at the time these things were made. And so there's a dispute about who owned what and got to do what. And so that's why this is the only version of the Tarzan series, of which there are 12 other installments, one of which came out the year before this, starring the much more famous Johnny Weissmuller as Tarzan, who had the famous yell, that kind of thing. And so, but you don't hear that. Go ahead. You don't hear that in this movie.
Well, no, you hear you hear some kind of, it's like, ah!
Yeah, it's not nearly as impressive, dude. It's not nearly as impressive when it comes to that. It's like, dude, everyone knows the Tarzan yell. It's like, and there's a reason why I think Johnny Weissmuller nailed it. And it's like, if you don't have Johnny Weissmuller at that point in history, it's like, you're not making a Tarzan film.
That probably should have been right out the gate. That probably should have been the writing on the wall. Because they do it right on. You see Tarzan swinging around, and he does the yell, and it's just kind of like, whoa, that's a jarring yell.
Yeah, it's just not sonorous. It's like there's something about the Johnny Weissmuller one that had kind of a sonorous quality to it. It's got the yodeling effect, which is really neat. It's kind of got some interesting things going on, which I think audiences really picked up on. This is just like you said. It's a guttural kind of okay, that's really bad. I my ears are hurting and bleeding now. I don't want to hear that again. But so anyway, where do you land on this on scale?
Do I particularly want to go and watch the serial version of this, which I'm pretty sure, it'd be something to track down if I wanted to? Probably not. And that's nothing against that. It's just I'm not even sat down and watched the other serials that I've kind of thought about watching. I think that's probably worth to give it a try, because who knows, maybe watching it all in the actual order and everything might actually, it might really be really good. And it's unfortunate that this has been made, because you are taking someone's story and you are condensing it down. I don't like it when people do that. We know of movies out there, popular movies now, even, that have that happen to them. And you almost want to see the director's cut of the serial version of this Tarzan movie. The problem is this: even with all of that, there are still some other kind of issues, like we've already brought up, other issues that we kind of haven't really brought up as well. The acting, I thought the acting was kind of meh the whole entire time. One of the things that I did actually like about this movie was some of the action sequences, especially when you're sitting there watching something that, was shot in the 30s, and you're kind of asking yourself, how did they do that? But
the lions.
I don't.
Yeah, the lions.
Yes, the lions and the crocodile. Although the crocodile was funny, or the alligator, whatever you want to call it. I thought that was funny because they show what appears to be a very big crocodile, and it gets into the water, and then when Tarzan's on top of it, you're like, that is clearly a blow up toy.
Yeah.
But But the lion was actually, like, the lion part was like, okay, I was sitting there going, the only thing I could figure out is, like, there's just a very well-trained lion. But even that, like, I'm sitting there, like, that has to be, like, the most well-trained lion of all time. Because there was a couple times I'm just going, how is he not actually dead?
Well, I mean, here's the
Like,
thing. Like, the lion could be somewhat, used to people, I'm going to guess. But the second point I'm going to make about that is that these are long before the days when you got the little thing at the end of movies that said no animals were harmed in the making of this film. They had no problems
Yeah.
doing things with animals that were going to completely, could damage or ruin the animal's either life or end in their death. So it's like I have no. I was looking at that. It's like, oh, real kitty's probably getting hurt right now because he's doing things to
Yeah.
it that he probably shouldn't. Oh, good grief!
Yeah.
They did things then.
But all that said with me, okay, no, I'm just gonna do it. This movie, the movie version of this, I have to kill it with fire.
Oh, okay.
There was no reason for it to be made. Let it be the cereal. It needs to go. It needs to go away. To the person that recommended this to us, thank you. I really do thank you for recommending it to us.
We were thankful that you introduced these things to us.
I was telling Justin at the beginning with this, I hope I'm not destroying a childhood memory or anything like that. What he said was maybe that we watch terrible movies sometimes. So maybe that's part of this. I don't know. Full respect. If this is something you like, I am not going to say that's a bad thing at all. But for me personally, this isn't a waste of my time because I got to learn some neat things about it. But the movie in general, like, no, never again. I would rather kill it with fire, replace it with the cereal, and then let's go from there.
Okay. I'm going to be ever so slightly more generous, only because I did see some B-movie value in it. This is going to be fridging the bad dates for me. It is absolutely B-movie material with plenty of tropes that you expect in a movie like this. And it fails in some ways I really don't know if I've seen before, but it's more of a kind of a interesting to complain about kind of a B movie than it is to laugh out loud that can you believe that happened kind of a thing. And when you combine that with like the kind of cringeworthy kind of Tarzan advancing in very sexual predator kind of ways on Mary, who seems to be enjoying it way too much. It's like, yeah, once and done for me. I'm never coming back to this thing again. There are certain points at which I could say I maybe kind of got a little bit of a laugh out of, but that's it. And the only thing separating from this from like Kill It With Fire for me is the fact that it did produce an occasional laugh for me, and also the fact that it was too incoherent to actually have its point be that the racism and sexism were the actual point of the film. They're more like background materials like they are in a lot of these films, which is why I don't hand out, which is kind of my line for, handing out Kill It With Fire is if like you have to demonstrate clearly, what you're doing in this messaging, that this is a message that is positive, it is good. and it is not just an accident. It is the theme of the film. And this movie doesn't have a theme, folks. It's too incoherent for that.
Yeah.
So in any case, Aaron, thank you, Aaron Aram5569, for making us laugh at love again. That's a reference to MST3K, if you're familiar with it. Season 2, Catalina Caper, Episode 4. In any case, I'm moving right along. And if, like Aaron, you're thinking of some titles that we should cover in the future, don't just sit there. Do tell us, as long as it's available for free on Tubi or other free streaming platforms. And made before 1975. The year that the modern blockbuster was born. And while you're at it, please like and subscribe, or follow us in your podcast purveyor of choice if that's your preferred mode of listening. But while we're waiting for more suggestions, tell the folks what's coming up next week, Ryan.
All right. I don't know if I was the one that suggested this movie or not. It was one of those things where I have not seen this movie. I thought the premise was kind of interesting. Hey, it's another movie where we are going to be focusing a little bit more on race. Although I think this will be like a big topic for this and not like Tarzan where it wasn't, beside the point. But this is what Tubi says. Tubi says, in a world where race creates barriers abroad, the son of a wealthy Chinese merchant begins a biracial love affair while posing as a white American, which is the perfect way to get around the fact that they totally cast a white guy. I feel like the director sounds familiar. Frank Lloyd
is a famous architect by the name of Frank Lloyd Wright. But he's not in any way associated with the film, so I'm not sure if we've seen anything by him before. I don't recognize the name in association with film, so I'm guessing no. but yeah, I have to look in the database too to see if to check that.
Starring Richard Barthelmess. I don't know if that's how you say his last name correctly. Constance Bennett, Anders Randolph, and E. Alan Warren. Next week's film is titled Son of the Gods.
Son of
That's
the
an
Gods.
interesting title in itself.
Boy, did they ever name people differently back in the day, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I'll say. All right, well, I guess that's our show for this week, folks. There's our first Tarzan review. Maybe we'll watch more in the future, hopefully better than this. My wife is much more, she's seen, this is like one of the few Tarzan movies she hasn't seen before, and she thought it was really terrible compared to the others, which are all B-movie fodder. So it's like, as she puts it at least, so it's like maybe we'll see more in the future and they'll get better. Well, hopefully, things can only go up. So, but in any case, that's our show for this week. We'll hopefully see you guys next week. And until then, I'll see you next week. And Ryan, I'll see you next week. Okay, man?
See you next week.
All right. Bye-bye, folks.
Tantor.
No, Tarzan. Not Tantor. It's an elephant.
Tantor.
No, Tarzan. Not Tantor. It's an elephant.
Tantor.
No, Tarzan.